The movie opens in a dystopian city, ruled by the tyrannical Van der Kooi family. Each year, the family conducts an annual ritual of public executions called the culling. It's a televised event where 12 citizens are selected and executed live. This year, Boy, his sister Mina, and their mother are among the chosen victims. They are helplessly dragged before the crowd. The leader of the family, Hilda Van der Kooi, takes out her gun and kills Boy's sister Mina and their mother in front of him. The scene then shifts to a dark forest where Boy is buried alive. It's raining heavily, and Boy manages to claw himself out of the mud. However, over the ground he is suddenly confronted by a shaman. Boy feels disappointed in himself for failing the test and lies back in the grave. The shaman reburies him, and Boy wishes his training involved less dirt. For years, the shaman trains Boy in martial arts and survival, raising him away from the city. He made him do daily chores, taught him weapon handling, and starved him for days. He taught him one goal that was to take revenge for the death of his mother and sister by killing Hilda. In flashbacks, Boy often sees his younger sister Mina and recalls their simple life. His mother was strange and was often seen cleaning guns clearly in opposition to the regime. Despite all the difficulties, he had a best friend, his sister Mina. He clearly remembers their cereal breakfast mornings, their handouts, and playing their favorite video games. Once Mina drew a plan to rob a bank so they could escape their city and asked him if he was with her. Boy replies to her with "always." Sometimes Boy feels as if he's trapped between two realities, never quite certain what's real and what's not. The shaman often gives him drugs that cause him to hallucinate. One day when Boy is in the market, Hilda's men storm in and torment innocent citizens. As one of them asks Boy to return home, Boy hands him over a paper on which it's written that he's deaf and mute and can only read lips. The man walks away. Suddenly, Mina's hallucination appears in front of Boy, and he recalls a memory of them together where Mina and he were standing in front of Hilda's statue. They were fearlessly mocking gestures at it and laughed out loud. But then his memory fades. Back in the forest, the shaman brainwashes Boy that his memories make him weak and a warrior can't be weak. His past self is dead, and his only purpose now is to kill Hilda Van der Kooi. So Boy returns to his training with the shaman. As years pass by, Boy grows into a young man, but his intense training continues. After he pushes his body to its limits, Boy believes he is ready to fulfill his mission to kill Hilda. In fact, he nearly defeated the shaman in a fight. However, he becomes distracted by Mina's hallucination. The shaman disapproves of his training, saying he isn't prepared. In order to get over his weakness, Boy tries to ignore Mina's hallucinations and does his everyday tasks without even bothering about her presence. He wanted to focus on his one goal without any distractions. One day, Boy goes to the market where he notices a cute flower girl who smiles at him and hands him a flower. Boy smiles back at her, but at the same time, the Van der Kooi family's soldiers arrive to take away the citizens chosen for the culling. The flower girl expresses her love for the culling event. Hearing that, Boy throws the flower back at her. The shaman comes there and leads Boy around a corner of the street from where they watch the soldiers secretly. As Hilda's men force people out of their homes, Boy gets flashbacks of his past when his family was attacked by the same men. Glenn Van der Kooi, husband of Melanie Van der Kooi and Hilda's brother-in-law, steps out of his car. The flower girl runs to him for an autograph. Gideon Van der Kooi, Hilda's brother, also appears at the scene. As Glenn begins to deliver a speech written by Gideon, he stops several times complaining about how poorly written it is. Gideon replies to him that the problem is not with the speech, but with the person reading it. During their argument, a woman suddenly comes forward from the crowd and angrily calls Glenn a puppet. Furious, Glenn takes out his gun and shoots at her, mistakenly killing someone else. The crowd turns into chaos. People try to attack Glenn, only to be slaughtered by Hilda's soldiers. Gideon calls the head of security, June 27th, to control the situation. One by one, she kills every person in the crowd. Watching people die reminds Boy of his dead mother and sister. At last, only 6 people remain for the culling, so Glenn orders them to be taken with them. But there is a kid among them. June 27th stands against him and strictly refuses to include any kids in the culling. As Hilda's soldiers take away those people, Boy wants to go after them, but the shaman stops him, saying he is not ready. This time, Boy defies him and insists on letting him go. He tries to sneak into Glenn's car trunk, but is surprised by a dead body already present in it. Determined to kill Hilda, he still gets in secretly. As they arrive at the Van der Kooi family's warehouse, Gideon blames Glenn for causing the mess and failing to bring even 12 people for the culling, which is scheduled for tonight. Glenn assures that he will work things out with Melanie, his wife, and Hilda's younger sister. But as Melanie arrives, Glenn immediately throws Gideon under the bus, blaming her brother's awful speech for the chaos. In return, Gideon blames Glenn for not reading the script well. Melanie gets furious and scolds them both. She tells Glenn to get ready for the ceremony as he is the host. Then she instructs Gideon to grab 6 people off the street if necessary, but they must have 12 for the event. Meanwhile, Boy slips out of the car trunk and starts moving through the area. Mina's hallucination suddenly appears beside him and starts talking to him. Boy asks her to stay quiet and let him focus on his mission, but she keeps distracting and he forgets she's not real. Lost in the moment, he steps right out into the open. Glenn is out there with his men and he spots him instantly. He orders his men to get him. Boy, alarmed by armed men approaching him, reflects on his training. He then begins to fight the men. During the fight, a man named Basho offers Boy help to kill Hilda in exchange for his freedom, as he was captured there by Hilda. Boy can't hear, but he understands everything by reading his lips. Boy agrees to his offer and realizes that he has a teammate for the first time. Despite having a partner, Boy has to fight all the soldiers by himself as Basho hides behind a cart. One by one, Boy successfully kills all of the soldiers. Just when he thinks he's done, a soldier shows up and persistently fights him. However, Boy eventually wins, killing him. Glenn attempts to escape, but Basho catches him by shooting at his leg. Just when Boy is about to kill him, Basho stops him, saying he is of use. They interrogate him and learn that Hilda throws a party at her mansion every year before the culling. Glenn offers to help them in there. Unfortunately, Basho mistakenly drops the bench vise he was holding onto Glenn's head, and he dies on the spot. Basho claims Glenn was not going to help them anyway, but Boy disagrees. Anyway, Basho guides Boy out of the warehouse towards a secret location called Resistance. He worked there for years making guns, but now he was finally free. However, when they reach there, a man holds Boy at gunpoint, but Basho quickly stops him and says he's on the team. Basho and Benny hug each other and begin to talk. While Boy can read lips, he realizes Benny is speaking in another language, so he fails to understand what he says. As he pays attention to their expressions, Boy understands what they're talking about. Hilda's men came for them and killed everyone in the resistance except Benny. Basho asks Benny about a woman, apparently his lover, only to discover that she has been killed. Upon hearing the news, Basho breaks down, and Boy, reading between the lines, reaches out to console him. Enraged, Basho informs Benny that they will kill Hilda today because they know where she will be tonight, and they have the most powerful weapon in the form of Boy. They sit Boy down and begin to explain their plan to him to sneak into the mansion. However, Boy fails to understand it. At the same moment, Mina's hallucination shows up next to him and tells him to simply nod at Basho and Benny and act as if he understands their plan. As the three of them arrive at the mansion, Boy assumes they're going to a war, but their plan confuses him. Basho and Benny catch a chef outside the mansion and drop him unconscious. They make Boy wear the chef's clothing and send him inside the mansion, handing him a cake. Mina's hallucination accompanies him. Inside the mansion, Boy wanders with the cake. As he tries to find his way around, Mina asks him to try the macarons placed on the table for guests. Boy tastes one and finds them delicious. He gets distracted while eating macarons. Basho notices him and signals him to get back to the mission. At the same time, an announcement is made for guests to head towards the dinner table. Boy spots Hilda in the dining hall and instantly feels motivated to fulfill the purpose he trained for his whole life. Boy tells Mina's hallucination to hide somewhere while he'll carry out some chef duties. He asks her to grab as many macarons as possible and meet him in their magical place later. After this, Boy goes to the kitchen. The workers there notice that he's an outsider and attack him. Boy starts fighting them using a cheese grater to kill them all. He drops the grater and grabs a butcher's knife. He then walks into the dining hall, slashes a guard's throat, and heads straight for Hilda at the end of the table. Without hesitation, he cuts off her head in one go. Boy thinks he's finally done and has avenged his family's murder. But instead of silence, the room explodes with screams, and these terrified people look unfamiliar. Soon, Boy realizes something's off. He picks up the head and finds out that it's not Hilda. Suddenly, Gideon arrives there with his guards. He explains that he knew someone was trying to kill Hilda, so he set up this elaborate trap with paid actors to catch the resistance members. Boy tries to fight by grabbing Gideon's gun and pointing it at him, but he is attacked by June 27th. Gideon leaves the place with his men, allowing June 27th to take care of Boy. They get into a prolonged fight. Boy gains the upper hand and removes June's helmet. When Boy looks at her face, he loses focus and is knocked out by her. As he lies on the ground, he thinks about how he failed his mission. His mind drifts back to the past. He again remembers the murder of his mother and sister, someone cutting out his tongue and torturing him. He recalls how the shaman rescued him from Hilda's soldiers, nursed him, and prepared to take his revenge. June 27th, punches Boy to consciousness. She tied him to a chair. Recognizing from Boy's fighting style, June asks him about the shaman who trained him because he is Hilda's biggest enemy. But Boy refuses to tell anything. June angrily throws an axe at his head, which misses its target. Right then, Gideon steps in and tells June 27th to calm down and let him handle it. June leaves the room. Gideon sits down with the boy and tells him that he does not want to torture him because it causes nosebleeds. He says that he is also tired of the culling, gathering people unnecessarily every year for nothing. All of this is done just because his sister Hilda is afraid. She has spent years in a bunker out of the shaman's fear, which is why she has instituted these annual executions to kill the shaman and anyone connected to him. However, Gideon believes that they have killed everyone who could be a threat, and now they are murdering innocent people for nothing. The system has already won, but Hilda can't accept that because she's still scared. He asks Boy to make things easier and end this violence by telling him the shaman's address, but Boy refuses. Gideon loses his calm and slaps Boy for not cooperating with him. At the same time, Melanie comes there and tells Boy that killing Glenn was a big mistake because her show, The Culling, needed him as the host tonight. She intends to kill him in the show and orders the soldiers to take him to the studio. Melanie gets back to preparing for the event. She has been handling everything for years, while maintaining the fear of Hilda in the hearts of the people, because Hilda isn't mentally stable after spending years in the bunker. In the studio, soldiers get Boy ready for the show and chain him up on the stage. They make him wear a shock collar around his neck. The broadcast begins, and Hilda walks out trying to act like she's normal. Melanie watches her closely through cameras. At first, Hilda plays her role well. Hilda gives a speech, and the crowd cheers, but then she spots a shadow in the audience and thinks it's the shaman who came to kill her. Hilda gets scared and pulls out a gun, pointing it at the crowd. Right then, Melanie comes on the stage and takes over, sending Hilda back. She starts the culling event in the form of a TV show where the 12 chosen people are going to be killed by costumed characters. As those innocent people are killed one by one, the crowd cheers. Looking at this in horror, Boy realizes he must escape. Suddenly, Boy remembers Gideon's words that this bloody game will end only after the death of either Hilda or Shaman. Gideon was tired of it, so he kept a blade in Boy's pocket. Boy takes out the blade, cuts his rope, and tries to run away. Spotting him escape, Melanie activates Boy's shock collar, and he collapses right there. Melanie orders 4 of her men costumes as elves to take him to the stage and kill. On the stage, the man in a goat costume walks up holding a huge mallet, ready to smash Boy. Boy surrenders to his fate, but just as the hammer falls, it hits one of the elves instead. The goat then turns on the other elves, knocking them down. When it removes the head, it turns out to be Basho. Right behind him, Benny rushes in with guns. They free Boy and tell him that their plan worked perfectly. As usual, Benny does most of the talking, leaving Boy confused. He gives Boy a special brass knuckle. Boy, Basho, and Benny team up and start killing Melanie's men. The audience panics and leaves. Watching all this, Melanie is furious because the show has been ruined, while Gideon feels excited. They both get into an argument, and Melanie takes out her gun, pointing it at Gideon. Back on stage, Boy gets into a brutal fight with a serial pirate mascot, but soon runs out of bullets. Benny throws him a clip, which he loads and punches the pirate's face, killing him. Just then, Boy sees Mina's hallucination looking at him in horror. However, Melanie appears on stage with her gun. Benny sees her first and pushes Boy aside just as she fires, taking the shot. Boy holds Benny as he dies, unable to understand his last words as always. Melanie then shoots down Basho. She now comes for the boy, shooting bullets at him and admitting that she was the one behind this mass murder. Overwhelmed with rage, Boy races towards her, using a pineapple mascot as a shield for bullets. In the next scene, Melanie is tied to a chair by Boy. She tells him to go ahead and kill her on the camera. The camera starts to pull away from her, and then suddenly it crashes straight at her face, dripping blood. Boy turns to Basho, who, despite his fatal wounds, promises to get him to Hilda. As they move out, the soldiers swarm through the hallway. Basho tells Boy to go ahead as he slumps over. Boy remembers his purpose and slashes through every soldier with his sword. As the blood flows, he remembers his innocent family, losing his tongue and his brutal training. Eventually, he kills all of them. He then looks back at Basho, who is also dead now. Boy walks down the hallway and finds Gideon slumped over in the corner. He tells him that Melanie shot him in the back and gives him a key card that grants him access to Hilda's bunker. Boy points his sword at Gideon. the hallucination of Mina appears and warns him not to do it, but Boy refuses to show mercy. Boy tells her that she has died and that he no longer needs her. He strikes his sword and kills Gideon. After that, Boy gets into the elevator. Suddenly, Hilda appears on a small screen and tells him that finally his moment has arrived and now he will die for nothing. Boy says not for nothing and pulls a paper from his pocket and shows it in the camera. It is Mina's old drawing of the escape plan. Hilda's expression changes and the screen blacks out. Boy takes the elevator, and when the doors open, Hilda's soldiers surround him. June 27th is also there. She takes him to Hilda. As Boy enters a lavish room, he stares at the painting of the Coy family. The room begins to spin and he recalls his purpose, which is to kill Hilda. When he zooms into the painting that shows him with Mina and Hilda, he learns that Hilda is his mother. Hilda embraces Boy in her arms and sobs. She apologizes for not recognizing him and for what the shaman did to him. The shaman convinced them Boy was dead while he was still there. Suddenly, Boy remembers everything about how the shaman made him forget his reality and infused him with his lies. In flashbacks, he remembers his past. Decades ago, he was there at the culling day, but as a participant, rather than a victim. The shaman and his family were all lined up to be shot by Hilda because he trained soldiers against her family. The shaman begged for his children to be spared, but Hilda forced Boy to fire the gun, killing his family in front of him. Out of guilt, Boy runs into the forest and breaks down. When he looks up, he sees the shaman, who knocks him down and starts choking him to death. But then he stops because he has a better plan. He drags Boy into the forest and tortures him until he forgets Hilda and believes his mother and sister are dead. Then he cuts out his tongue and deafens him, turning him into a weapon he can control. Back in the present, Boy is horrified to learn the truth that he is part of the evil Coy family and unintentionally killed his uncle and aunt. Right then, Hilda pulls off June 27th's helmet and tells him that she is his little sister Mina, the one he thought was dead. Hilda begs Boy to show a sign that he is still her son and asks him to come back, but he is too shocked to respond. Considering him a threat, she orders June 27th to kill him, saying he is not her brother anymore. June moves forward and starts beating Boy. She then takes out one of her axes, but stops when Boy shows her the same mocking hand gesture from their childhood. Hilda screams at her to finish him, but June 27th turns around and throws the axe at her, hitting her on the forehead and killing her. Hilda's soldiers attack them. Taking cover behind a bar, June 27th and Boy grab their guns and shoot their way out of the room. Outside, they come across heavily armed gunmen. However, they fight their way through them. During the fight, a bullet hits Mina's arm and she gets injured, but they manage to kill them all. As more soldiers come in, Boy and Mina enter the elevator badly injured. Inside the elevator, Mina explains everything to Boy. She never stopped looking for him, even though everyone told her that the shaman had killed him. She became a monster hurting others because she believed they had taken him. Suddenly, the elevator crashes downward. When the doors open, they find the shaman waiting. The shaman says, Boy has done well, but it's not over yet. Boy uses sign language to tell him that the Coy family is dead and their rule is finished. But the shaman points at Mina and says that not all Coys are dead. He refuses to stop until every Coy is dead, even if it means killing Boy too. Mina gets furious and attacks the shaman. Watching his sister struggle alone, Boy gets in and finally faces the shaman in their final combat. The shaman is stronger, and he injures both siblings, badly cutting them deeply with the sharp stone from his necklace. Boy fights him with all his strength. At one point, he tears off the shaman's necklace and uses his weapon against him. However, shaman grabs it back and slashes Boy's arm and leg. As Boy bleeds profusely, he sees a vision of his younger self. It gives him the strength to turn against the shaman for the terrible things he has done. Boy finally manages to force the sharp rock into the shaman's neck, killing him. He then approaches Mina, who is lying there injured. She tells him to leave because it's better this way, but Boy refuses to abandon her and takes Mina with him. As they exit the compound, Boy promises her they'll find a way out of this city. The last scene is a flashback to young Boy and Mina at the arcade. As they begin playing a fighting game, Mina asks him if he's with her. Boy replies, always. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.